Hello again there. My name is Brian, but I am also known as the 3TopicsGamer here on YouTube. And for this particular video, I decided to try something I haven't really done in quite some time, but I decided to do a very somewhat personal video going over 10 facts about me. I've been kind of wanting to experiment with different type of videos, and my friend Lacey suggested that I do like a kind of a personal Q&A video, allowing my audience and other people who see this video, maybe even new subscribers, get to know a bit about me on a personal level. Now, it's a little bit different than my usually weekly live streams that I do on Wednesdays, where we just talk about whatever's going on in our mind. As this particular video is just focused strictly on allowing you out there to know personal information about me. That way you guys get to learn me a little bit more on a personal level. So I did happen to get a number of questions from a number of individuals. Some individuals actually sent in a number of very, very good questions. So yeah. So before I start, I would just like to thank good friend Lacey for sending this idea into me. And if you do happen to enjoy this video of mine and you would like to see more, just let me know in the comments down below to do another 10 more facts about me, and we'll do that from there. So the first two questions actually come from Lacey herself, and the first question that she wanted to know, which is a really, really good one, she wanted to know, what do I love about my life, and what could I do to add to the happiness? Well, Lacey, I can say I'm at a place in my life where I don't exactly love my life in the condition that it's in, but I like where it's at because I sense that there's potential for improvement. And that kind of goes into your second part of your first question, in which what could I do to add to it? Two big things. One, it's move away from Vegas and absolutely get a dog. I've always wanted to move away from Vegas because I've spent 30 years here and I have so many bad memories. So many things have happened here that are just negative. I mean, both my grandfather and my father died. I've lost friends here. I've had terrible experiences here. And it's not that I don't have happy memories being here, but it's just like there's something about Vegas that you just know it's not for you. And so I've spent many times just trying to figure out a way to just leave Vegas and start fresh somewhere else and be a completely different person. A better person than the person I've developed into now. Not to say that that's a bad thing, but I just want the opportunity to just experience different parts of the world. And I think that is always a positive experience that can have a positive influence on me. And the second part is absolutely get a dog. I've wanted to get a dog since I was 5 years old. I have footage of my childhood of me saying I want a dog. And I've spent my whole life around dogs. I mean, when I was growing up at my primary house that I grew up in, there were 3 dogs next door that I was always hanging out with. When I moved to California for the second time, I had there's this wonderful little dog named Courage who had this cute little white, fluff of hair that we would always kind of put water in and turn into a cute little mohawk who I absolutely adored. So I think just having that companion to come with me through life would just be such a positive experience. I mean, I look at all the closest people I have in my life. They all have somebody. My brother just had a kid and he's happily married, so he's on his own path. My friend John is at home taking care of his wonderful parents. He's on his own path. I feel like I'm on my own path, but I have to walk it alone. I mean, I don't have a problem with my 2 siblings, my sisters, but they are so close together that they're on their own path together. And I felt like for the longest time, I've been going on this path of life on my own. I mean, yeah, I have friends I care about, but to go through life with someone to come with me would have the biggest impact on me. So really, leaving Vegas and getting a dog, I know if I had those 2 elements, my life would be in a much happier place. And I do believe that is something that very much could still happen. So, yeah. And just as a heads up, I have a feeling that this video might be a little bit extensive, so I hope nobody minds about the length. And Lacey's second question is, if I were to try out for the Olympics, what would be my sport and why? Easy, track and field. I spent a good amount of time trying track and field in high school. I wasn't the fastest person, but I think I would have been fast enough to be on a team. I think the reason I didn't pursue too many sports in high school was because I spent a lot of time focusing on my academics. And it's not that you can't focus on academics and sports, but it was just that at the time my goal was to get into game development or graphic design. because that was the college I was pursuing. I was going to go for a degree in game design and graphic design, and I did eventually go into that department. And because a lot of my focus for the future was on that, I didn't have time to really venture much into a sport. But yeah, absolutely. If I could have tried out for an Olympic sport, absolutely would have been track and field. That would have been a great experience. Great cardio. So yeah, that's what I would have gone for. Next question comes from Will Sayer, who sent this question to me on Facebook, so I appreciate you, Will. And you want to know, before you started YouTube, what sort of jobs did I end up having growing up? Before I had YouTube, the only job I had up to that point was I was a store clerk at my local Walgreens, which was about maybe 2 or 3 miles away from the house that I grew up at. I would be at that job for 3 years, and I would eventually be promoted to becoming the primary photo tech specialist, to the point where I would actually end up running that photo department for about 2 years. But it was during that period of time that I actually started YouTube. I think I started YouTube after my first year, so I only had 1 year at Walgreens as a store clerk. Then I decided to do a YouTube channel, and then for the following 2 years, I was the photo specialist. So yeah, I would say that being Walgreens was really the only job I had for a little bit before I started YouTube. Next question comes from Jackie Boy, and you want to know, you seem to have a rocky relationship with your dad. May I ask why? I think the rockiness of my relationship with Dad, who some of you may know passed away about 8 years ago, it mainly came from the fact that I don't think my dad knew how to connect with me. I don't think he knew how to form a healthy relationship with me. And it may stem back to his own relationship with his father. The funny thing about Grandpa is I never got to meet my dad's father, but the one thing that was always consistent about my dad and his relationship with his dad was he never liked to talk about it. Everyone I know who knew Finney Sr., because my dad was a junior, could talk about him. But Dad never did. Anytime I brought Grandpa up, all he would ever say was, I didn't get along with my dad. He never said why. But everyone else around him, even though I know some of the negative details of what Grandpa was doing when my dad was a kid, I know those details. I don't necessarily condemn them, but I can't help but wonder if what happened to my dad when he was growing up had a negative impact on him when it came to not really trying to build a relationship with me in a positive sense. He had a great relationship with my sisters, of course, but I just don't think he ever knew how to connect with me. I didn't feel a sense of love. And you could say that, oh, your actions, speak louder than words. And that may be true in some sense, but I do not recall at any time Dad never once said that he ever loved me. I have no memory of that ever happening, and I have no memory of ever saying I loved him. As far as I know, I was alive for 26 years by the time he passed away, and all that time, as far as I know, there is not a single picture we ever took together where it was just me and him. There's pictures of me and him and the rest of the family, or me and him and maybe my uncle or aunt, but there is not one picture in existence that I think exists of just me and Dad. And so by the time he passed, it just kind of came down to me feeling sad that I would not have a chance to really form a very positive relationship. I still respected him. No, don't get me wrong. I respected him because of what he had been able to achieve. I mean, when I look at the entire time period of his life, everything that he'd achieved, everything that he had gone through, he absolutely earned his respect without question, and I still respect him to this day. There's not a single major decision that I make now that I don't go back to my dad's wisdom and what he taught me, because he certainly taught me some positive lessons, but he didn't teach me how to connect with him, and maybe he just didn't know how. So that's what I am the saddest about, is that I will never get a chance to build a really positive relationship out of love with my dad. I never really got the chance, and I don't think he really knew how. So I kind of feel sorry for him that he just didn't know how. So that's kind of what establishes the somewhat rocky relationship I had with my dad. But yeah, I still miss him every day. I still think about him every day. And I just wish we had more time or more chances to connect. Next question comes from Zach Tarf. You want to know favorite X-Men character. Well, if we're talking X-Men comics, I think I'd go with Magneto, because the difference between Charles and Eric is that Eric is more of the realist, and Professor Xavier is more of the dreamer. And when it comes to my mind, I very much am more based off realistic terms. And so a lot of things that Magneto says in terms of his viewpoints are things that I do agree with. Where I disagree is when he takes it to really harmful extremes. And that's where Magneto loses me. Like, if he just sticks to his convictions, he isn't, things that he says are not necessarily wrong. And I think that people who are dreamers refuse to acknowledge that, yeah, not everyone will get along. And sometimes you have to find a way to defend yourself. Otherwise, you're going to be in real trouble. But again, when it comes to just Magneto's processes, it's when he takes things to extremes. That's where I have negative issues with Magneto. But yeah, without question, Magneto's definitely my favorite X-Men character. Next question comes from Pharaoh Status 933, and you want to know, at what point during my YouTube career did speaking in front of the camera and make videos become natural to me? I think it became natural by my second year. Up until that point, I went to high school, and I was in this magnet program called AOC, which stood for Academy of Communications. And for that, I worked with digital media, I worked with cameras, I learned video editing, graphic design, like just pretty much anything that you see when it comes to any type of video production, that's what I was learning, which is kind of amazing because I went to college for game design, and then when I saw the whole process of game design, I realized I didn't really like it, so I left. And then doing YouTube, I realized that I was actually using all of the skills that I had learned throughout high school. So pretty much everything I learned in college, I never actually kept with me and used it later in my life. But everything I learned in high school came back, and I'm still using it to this day. So I think that was kind of a funny coincidence. But yeah, for the longest time, all throughout my high school period, I did not want to be in front of the camera. I never felt comfortable being in front of the camera. I liked being on the editing. I liked being behind the camera. I loved the directing part, but it took a while for me to kind of get in front of the camera. And it really wasn't until I found a specific YouTuber who inspired me to start YouTube that I got over my fear of being in front of the camera. And it took a couple years before I felt comfortable, and then it became second nature. So yeah, it definitely took a couple years for me to get to that point. And the next question that you have is, what kind of content do I wish I could do but know that I will never because I just don't have that talent? I wish I could do more comedy content and be funny, but I'm just not a funny person. I don't think I'm the kind of person that can make people laugh or can be like the light of a room. I can't like light up a room like that. I wish I could. I wish I could be more funny, but I'm just not. I'm a very informative and direct person. I like to stick to details and just tell someone what I think and back it up with these sort of facts. So yeah, I wish I was a funny person. Next question comes from Vampire A1056, and these are the last 2 questions of the video. And his first question is, what motivated me to do YouTube? What motivated me originally to do YouTube was simply that by the time I was 20, I was out of college, and I just didn't have any friends, and I kind of wanted to try something new. I wanted to develop my social skills, because here's the thing about me. I'm not very good at starting conversations. I'm just very good at keeping them going. And I wasn't very comfortable talking to complete strangers. So I felt that after seeing the specific YouTuber who I was inspired to start my YouTube channel of, and believe it or not, the channel was actually named after this person for a number of years. And then once I became really good friends with this person, they actually picked the changed name that the channel is currently named now. That was her choice. She picked the name. After I told her that the channel was originally named after her, I just kind of wanted to just develop my social skills and get a chance to interact and talk to people online that I may never get a chance to meet in person. So I think that was the primary motivation for me to want to start YouTube. And I have to admit, I've had a wonderful time doing YouTube. I've been able to go on all kinds of wonderful experiences that I never could have if I had never done YouTube. So yeah, I don't regret my time on YouTube 1 second. Your next question is, what does Final Damnation, why does it bother me on a personal level? Okay, well, for those who've been watching me from out, you would know that I really hate Final Fantasy 13 for a number of reasons. But the thing is, it isn't even about the game itself. It's what the game took away from me. And what ended up happening is that one game ended up costing me one of my most treasured friendships with someone that I had known for such a long time. I had known this person all throughout middle school, all throughout high school, and all throughout college. The reason the Final Fantasy 13 incident still sticks to me is that incident is the only time where someone close to me, someone I really trust, openly betrayed my trust, and they did it to my face, and they didn't care. It wasn't so much the game itself, because I already had a bad feeling about this game, and I didn't want to play it. It's the fact that my friend at the time, he pushed so hard for me to play this game. And mind you, I put my trust in it. I trusted my instincts, but then I trusted my friend saying maybe he knows what he's talking about, even though part of me knew this was a bad idea. And after 70 hours of playing this game, it was easily one of the worst gaming experiences. But it was a moment where my own instincts were right, and I couldn't trust this person again. That was it. And I know that seems extreme over a game, but it wasn't about the game. It was the fact that this person openly betrayed my trust after I stated I did not want to play this game. I put my trust in him, and he knew this was a bad idea, and he did it anyway. And after it was all over, he didn't care. He didn't apologize. He didn't say, oh, I was just screwing with you. It's like, you don't screw with someone like that. You don't. It wasn't even a backstab. It was like stabbing you directly to your face, and that hurts. I mean, it's one thing to get stabbed in the back, but it's another to look the person in the eye and do it in front of them, and they see you doing it, and you don't care. And I never spoke to him again after that, because at that point, I knew I could not trust him. And when it comes to friendship, there has to be that level of trust. And the one most important lesson about trust that my father ever taught me is that trust is very easy to lose. It's almost impossible to earn back. And unfortunately for him, he could never earn that back. Even after all the time we had spent together over years, over periods of our life, from middle school to high school through college, that one moment showed me his true colors. And that hurt the most. That's why I don't like talking about that game. It has nothing to do with the game itself. It's what it cost me. If that game had never entered my life, me and him would probably still be friends. And maybe I never would have discovered that side of him. I wish I hadn't, but that's why that hurts so much. And the last question of the episode comes from what helps me through the dark times. I think what helps me through the dark times is listening to specific songs, but most importantly, not only writing down my thoughts, but reading older thoughts. As someone who's a big fan of history and documenting everything, I always like to kind of go back and remind myself of happier times in my life. Past moments where I experienced like great moments. Now, here's something that maybe some of you guys may not know about my journal collection, is that I currently own, these are 6 journals, starting all the way back from my very first entry was February 9th, 2010. So this pretty much journals my entire 20s. Like all of this, I think volumes 1 through 5 go through my 20s. I think 6 and 7 are in my 30s. I'm currently on my 7th volume now, and I think I'm halfway through this one. But anytime I find myself in a really dark moment, I just kind of skim through periods of my life, and I try to remember and see memories where I was actually happy, or I had like a happy moment. And then it takes me back to that one moment. Even though my memories in some cases might be vague, just reading that entry, it takes me back to that moment of happiness. And it reminds me that it is possible. Even though I'm in a dark mood or something bad is currently happening to me, it's just another page. It's another page of my life. And the page will eventually turn to the next page. And despite the fact that that one page was a bad one, the next page could be a good one. And so, trust me, there's plenty of moments where I have very bad moments, and then I've got wonderful moments where I have like the best days ever, or I get to hang out with a good friend that I haven't seen in a while, or I get to make a a great video that people really respond to, or I get to see some family members I haven't seen in a long time. And then there's moments of tragedy in here where like someone, I go to the hospital, or I lose a friend, or a relative passes away. It just becomes another entry. And I remind myself of that, and I make sure to write it down, and then I flip the page to the next day. So that's typically what I like to do in order to get over the dark days or dark periods of my life. I just write it down, I document it, I leave it alone, and then I move on to the next page. And that usually helps, and I've been doing that for over about a decade. And, you know, in the event of my passing, I think if I don't have any kids, I think leaving these behind would allow people to understand just what my life was about. Because not all of us will get a chance to leave something behind, but just knowing that my life is documented and people can know about me even after I'm gone, that kind of relaxes me, and I think that helps. So those are 10 facts, personal facts about me. Again, I want to thank Lacey and everyone who else sent in questions. If you want me to do another video like this, please let me know in the comments down below. And like always, I want to thank you guys for watching. You're awesome, and I'll see you guys next time.